We've been anticipating a briefing from the Border Management Authority to give an update on the operations over this Easter long weekend. Commissioner Dr. Michael Masiapato has now taken to the podium. Let's listen in.
In securing the countries for the preservation of our freedom, as this plays a central role in the sustenance of our society. We are gathered here today to receive a report on the implementation of the 2025 Border Management Easter Operational Plan. This plan was executed for a period of 10 days from the 15th of April 2025, and that was on a Tuesday, to Thursday the 24th of April 2025. This year's operations align with the previous year's operation that it has a similar timeline of 10 days, each commencing on a Tuesday in a particular week and ending on the Thursday the following week. The 2025 Easter operation marks the third Easter operation carried out by the Border Management Authority as an independent law enforcement authority, which is meant to facilitate and manage the legitimate movement of persons and goods in and out of the Republic of South Africa. The implementation of this plan was overseen by members of the Border Technical Committee of Directors General, the Interministerial Consultative Committee of the Ministers responsible for border management, chaired by Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Leon Schreiber. It was also overseen by members of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs under the chairship of Mr. Musa Chabani. For contextual purposes, it should be emphasized that the BMA officials, even in this period, were still responsible for the implementation of immigration functions, port health functions, environmental as well as agricultural biosecurity functions, including access control, as well as general law enforcement functions at the ports of entry, 71 of them, as well as the border law enforcement area. In this Easter period, the BMA executed one of its most extensive deployments to date across all the 71 ports of entry. With enhanced visibility, joint law enforcement operations, and technological enforcement through drone surveillance as well as body-worn cameras. The implementation of this plan had effectively been supported by all of our key strategic partners. Among others, those are the South African Police Service, the South African Revenue Service, the South African National Defence Force, the Road Traffic Management Corporation, the Cross-Border Road Transport Agency, the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development, SANPAX, SANRAL, as well as the Special Investigative Unit, whose role in this instance had been to assist us in terms of the implementation of proactive measures for the purposes of dealing with border fraud and corruption across our ports of entry through the implementation of awareness programs. Additionally, the extensive deployment of provincial as well as local traffic law enforcement officers across all corridors leading to the ports of entry contributed to the maintenance of law and order on the corridors and within the 10-kilometer radius from the respective ports of entry. This kind of collaborative work sends a clear message to those who typically engage in lawless behavior to understand that the authority of the state cannot be undermined. As such, no major road blockages were reported on key corridors leading to our major ports of entry. Here we talk about major corridors such as the N1 to Beitbridge into Zimbabwe and to the continent, N11 corridor into Groblersdal Bridge, port of entry into Botswana, N4 into Libombo, port of entry into Mozambique, RS47 road or corridor into Kopfontein, which lead into Botswana, N17, which lead into Oshuk, port of entry into Eswatini, as well as R26 that leads to Maseru Bridge into Lesotho. This time around, we did not experience any, what we call, blockage on the road, primarily because of the great work that has been done. And we really appreciate the sterling work that has been done by the traffic officers in the respective provinces who continue to partner with the BMA, particularly in the corridors as well as the 10-kilometer radius into the respective ports of entry. Now, we want to emphasize that the introduction of surveillance drones as well as the body-worn cameras has been a game changer for border management work, earning praise from members of the intelligence community for its clear as well as measurable impact. The technology had also enhanced collaboration amongst border law enforcement stakeholders at the key ports of entry, where joint response teams work seamlessly based on the real-time detections of illegal movement. Now, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to present the 2025 Easter report, as it were. Let's then start with the statistics around the movement of persons. We want to start by indicating that the movement data in this particular instance has been sourced from our key two systems for recording the movement of persons, and those are the biometric movement control system as well as the enhanced movement control system. These numbers should be understood in the context that we did extend some of the operating hours at some of the critical ports which do not normally operate on a 24-hour basis. In this 2025 Easter period, we registered about 1,057,063 movements across all our 71 ports of entry. This is an increase of 8% compared to the 2024 Easter period, where we registered about 974,729. This upward trend highlights the growing demand for cross-border travel, particularly in the post-COVID period. Despite the high volumes of travelers across all the three modalities of air, land, and sea, all measures as well as contingency plans that has been implemented and put together by the Border Management Authority and its key stakeholders effectively enabled us to manage the flow, ensured operational stability and traveler safety throughout this 2025 Easter period. Of the 1,057,063 travelers, OR Tambo, as usual, facilitated the majority of the travelers at 220,339, which is a 9% increase just for OR Tambo compared to the 199,873 movement of 2024. The Libombo port of entry facilitated around 161,457 travelers, which is a 14% increase compared to the 2024 movement of 141,690. Fixback port of entry to Lesotho recorded a 31% increase of travelers in the 2025 Easter of 72,522 movement compared to the 55,519 of the 2024 Easter period. Interestingly, Beitbridge became the third busiest port. They facilitated around 122,228 travelers, but it is a decrease of 16% compared to the 2024 movement of 141,281. Further, even Cape Town International Airport registered a 9% decrease by facilitating only 85,631 travelers compared to the 93,012 travelers they facilitated in 2024 Easter period. These figures demonstrate a dynamic nature of border movement patterns and the need for adaptability, data-driven strategies to effectively manage volumes and operational capacity across the South African ports. In facilitating the above movements as the Border Management Authority, we processed about 64,500 light vehicles, which were thoroughly searched as part of our routine and risk-based inspections. About 14,410 freight vehicles underwent detailed searches to mitigate risk associated with the smugglings as well as the movement of illicit goods. About 2,378 buses were processed and the passengers were accordingly screened. About 3,114 taxis as well as 2,804 informal transport operators, also known as Malaysias, were searched for full compliance to the cross-border movement protocols. In addition, 899 trucks were subjected to weighbridge inspections to check for load compliance to deter any smuggling. At the aviation modality, 1,446 flights were cleared by the BMA officials. About 192 vessels were officially cleared for entry and or for exit, and of which 27 of those were processed through the off-port limit mechanism, where crew changes were facilitated whilst the vessels has been stationed at deep sea without having to dock at the port. Let's then move to talk about the interception of illegal movements across the ports in this particular period. Just in the period of 10 days, we have been able to intercept and apprehend a total of 6,253 persons who were attempting to enter and or exit South Africa illegally. This is an increase of 61% compared to the 2024 Easter operation interceptions, which were sitting at around 3,841. Of these 6,253, about 4,795 of them were undocumented. And of course, about 1,059 were undesirables, and 403 were found to be inadmissible for various reasons. And some of those reasons were people with fraudulent visas, or they just failed to produce the yellow fever certificates while they were coming from yellow fever infested countries. Even in this 2025 Easter period, a consistent pattern of top 3 nationalities which continue to undermine our immigration laws remains the Zimbabweans at 2,019, followed by Basutus at 1,921, and then followed by Mozambicans at 1,143. And the remainder of 1,170 were shared amongst the Swatis and other nationalities. All those intercepted without documents were fingerprinted. They were declared undesirable for 5 years and got deported to their respective countries, with the exception of the facilitators. This increased interception of 61% can be attributed to the deployment of high-tech surveillance drones as well as the body cameras. In addition to the 6,253, about 112 individuals were arrested at the ports of entry and or at the border law enforcement area for various reasons. And these particular ones were not deported, but were mainly handed over to members of the South African Police Service for further processing. The majority of these individuals were actually facilitators of illegal activities around the port of entry and were therefore charged for aiding and abetting according to Section 49(2) of the Immigration Act. This is one thing that we have started focusing on as the Border Management Authority, particularly being assisted by the drones, to be able to identify the facilitators, make sure that they get arrested, they do not get deported, but they had to face the full might of the law on the South African side, because they are the ones that facilitate illegal migration into South Africa, and that is the focus going forward. Working in close collaboration with these drone technology operators, together with the real-time capability of the push-to-talk communication technology, the response teams operated more efficiently along the vulnerable segments, as well as the border law enforcement area along the borderline. This approach enabled instant tracking, tracing, as well as the interception of illegal movement of persons and goods. During this Easter period, 83 joint operations were conducted with all other critical law enforcement authorities. 59 joint roadblocks were activated for screening vehicles and enforce regulations along the key corridors. Additionally, over 1,141 vehicle patrols as well as 1,183 foot patrols were conducted at the hotspots areas within the port of entry as well as the border law enforcement area just in these 10 days of Easter operations. Let's then move to reflect on the general law enforcement work. During this Easter period, the border guards successfully intercepted 4 motor vehicles and 1 motorcycle which were attempted to be smuggled out of South Africa. A 22-seater minibus or midibus, as well as a sedan passenger vehicle, were impounded at Beitbridge Port of Entry after the vehicles were used for aiding and abetting illegal migration. All these were handed over to the South African Police Services detectives for their further processing. Further, 5,181 kgs of cannabis to the value of 129,550 was confiscated and handed over to customs for further processing. 8 passports endorsed with fraudulent stamps were confiscated at Lebombo Port of Entry. Other interceptions include 879 items of counterfeit alcohol, 3 bales of banded clothing, and 50 pairs of counterfeit shoes. 34 boxes of counterfeit cigarettes were intercepted as they were being smuggled into South Africa, with smugglers using several routes as we have identified them near the Lebombo Port of Entry as well as the Beitbridge Port of Entry. To date, more than R1 billion worth of illicit cigarettes have been intercepted in various ports of entry by the border guards across the country from the 15th of April in 2022. Regarding port health specialized functions, just in these 10 days, our port health specialists intensified their screening of travelers for infectious as well as for communicable diseases, as well as the inspection of health-related goods across the port of entry. In this regard, over 215,585 travelers were screened, 836 flights were disinfected, and 60 units of illegal skin lightening products were confiscated. Given the outbreak of measles in Zimbabwe, the port health specialists continue to be on high alert across all the various ports of entry and are implementing heightened health screening measures to prevent the potential spread of the disease into South Africa. When coming to agricultural and environmental biosecurity specialized function, our biosecurity teams consisting of the K9 units, inspectors, animal health technicians, and veterinarians enforced compliance within terminals and border law enforcement area along the borderline. About 3,043 kgs of non-compliant regulated agricultural products at various ports of entry were confiscated, and these include medicinal herbs, wands, and prohibited food items. These illustrate the persistent threat of our food safety as well as our agricultural economy. When it comes to counter-corruption measures, we just want to indicate that just in the 10 days of these operations, 2 immigration officials were arrested at Beitbridge for collaborating with facilitators attempting to allow the movement of undocumented individuals into or entering into South Africa illegally. Following the launch of the Border Management and Immigration Anti-Corruption Forum, together with the Special Investigating Unit, we have started with the awareness campaigns across the various ports of entry to ensure that officials understand the dangers of being involved in corrupt as well as basic fraudulent activities across the ports of entry. More critically, facilitating people entering the country without requisite documentation. In conclusion, during this period, the BMA officials also imposed 38 penalties to non-compliant conveyancers, mainly buses as well as airlines, to the value of 947,300. These are the conveyancers who have been found to be bringing people into the country without requisite documentation. In this instance, you will be aware that any conveyancer that attempts to bring anybody into the country without requisite document, they are liable to pay 15,000 per each passenger that they are bringing into the country, as it were. Despite significant environmental and personnel-related constraints, I am pleased to report that through joint efforts, the 2025 Easter operations, we consider them to have been successful within the context of the planning that we have done and the implementation of the plan, as it were. We maintain the integrity of our borders. we protected public health, we generated some bit of figures for the state on the basis of those conveyancers who were not complying. We maintained the integrity of the borders, and of course, on that basis, we can indicate that the authority will continue to build on the successes of this Easter operation as we prepare for the upcoming peak periods. In this instance, we are looking forward and we are starting to plan very hard for the G20 summit that is going to be held in this country in November. And of course, that will lead us into the 2025 December as well as 2026 January festive operations. We are going to be putting plans together for those particular peak periods, and we should be able to also give a report in terms of how we have been able to do the implementation thereof. The lessons learned, intelligence gathered, as well as partnership strengthened during this deployment will feed directly into our long-term strategic posture, particularly in view of the fact that this work can not only be done by the Border Management Authority as an entity by itself, but it has to be effectively implemented with the collaboration with various partners within the value chain of law enforcement and other critical stakeholders in the justice crime prevention environment. I would like to commend every law enforcement official as well as our partner departments who played a role in this period, even those who played critical roles behind the scene. I especially thank all the BMA officials as well as all our frontline border guards across all the specialized functions, whether it's immigration, whether it's health, whether it's agriculture, whether it's environmental, and the rest of the team for their tireless efforts, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to our national mandate of securing borders for development. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Commissioner, for that detail.
All right, so these are live visuals coming to you from the GCIS offices in Pretoria, the Border Management Authority, given their own feedback. And as expected, there's been a lot of focus on the ways in which the drones that are now currently in frame and the body cams that have been introduced have bolstered the BMA's ability to essentially keep watch over the country's borders. Dr. Mike Masiapato, the Commissioner, mentioning there that they've intercepted more than 6,200 people. That's an increase of about 64% from this time last year. He says there's been no major congestions along any of the main 71 ports of entry that we have into the country. About 1 million movements were logged. Essentially, these are the people that were processed across these ports of entry, and no surprises, OR Tambo International, the busiest, followed by the Lebombo and Beitbridge border posts. We're told 2 immigration officials have been arrested for allegedly trying to help illegal immigrants enter into the country. We'll continue listening in